Have you ever wondered how inflation is affecting the world? Inflation, in its simplest form, is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. It's like an invisible force, subtly but relentlessly chipping away at the value of our money. But why should we care about inflation? Well, it's because it affects everything around us, our economies, our living standards, and most importantly, our future. When inflation rears its head, it can make life tougher for everyone. It can mean higher costs for essentials like food and housing, and it can put a strain on our resources. For economies, it can lead to instability, with governments struggling to keep pace with the rising costs. Inflation is more than just a financial term. It's a phenomenon that touches every aspect of our lives, often in ways we don't even realize. As we delve deeper into this topic, you'll see how inflation is not just a financial term, but a phenomenon that impacts us all. Imagine living in a country where the price of bread doubles every day. This is not a hypothetical scenario, but the harsh reality faced by the people of Venezuela, where hyperinflation has wreaked havoc on the economy. In Venezuela, the value of money is evaporating faster than water in a desert. The inflation rate, which measures how quickly prices increase, has been in the millions %, an unimaginable figure for most economies. This economic instability has led to a scarcity of essential goods, from food to medicine, as the prices skyrocket and purchasing power plummets. Consider this: one day you could afford a loaf of bread, and the next day that same loaf costs double. The day after, it quadruples. This rapid and relentless rise in prices has made daily life a constant struggle for survival. But the impact of hyperinflation goes beyond the cost of living. It has also eroded savings, leaving people with little to no financial security. Imagine saving for years, only to find that your savings can barely afford a cup of coffee. Businesses, too, face the brunt of this economic turmoil. With the value of money changing so rapidly, it becomes impossible to plan for the future, leading to a vicious cycle of economic instability and poverty. Venezuela's situation is an extreme example of how unchecked inflation can ravage an economy. It's a stark reminder that maintaining economic stability is not just about growth, but also about keeping inflation in check. Now, picture a different scenario where prices are steadily falling. Welcome to Japan, where the economic landscape is defined by a phenomenon known as deflation. A far cry from the hyperinflation we saw in Venezuela, Japan's deflation is a persistent issue that has been stifling economic growth for well over 2 decades. The most direct and immediate impact of deflation is on businesses. With prices falling, revenues decline, and profits are squeezed. Over time, this creates a challenging environment for businesses, discouraging investment and stifling innovation. The knock-on effect of this is a sluggish economy, where growth is slow and opportunities are few. But the impact of deflation goes beyond businesses. For consumers, deflation can seem like a good thing at first glance. After all, who doesn't like lower prices? But when prices are consistently falling, consumers may start to hold off on purchases, expecting that prices will be even lower in the future. This reluctance to spend further depresses demand, leading to a vicious cycle of falling prices and sluggish economic activity. At the heart of Japan's deflation problem is a complex mix of economic factors, including an aging population, a lack of immigration, and a cultural aversion to debt. But regardless of the causes, the effects are clear. In Japan's case, we see that too little inflation can be just as damaging as too much. Inflation doesn't only impact individual countries, it has global implications as well. Let's pause for a moment and consider the vast web of global trade. When a country like the United States experiences high inflation, it doesn't exist in a bubble. The effects ripple out, influencing economies around the world. This happens through the mechanisms of trade and exchange rates. Take, for instance, the price of goods. In a scenario where the United States is grappling with high inflation, the cost of its exports naturally increases. This price hike is then passed on to countries that import American goods, causing the cost of living to rise in those nations as well. Next, consider the exchange rates. Inflation often leads to a devaluation of the currency in the country where it's occurring. This means that other nations' currencies become stronger in comparison. While this might sound like a good thing, it's not always the case. A stronger currency can make a country's exports more expensive on the global market, hurting industries that rely on foreign buyers. Furthermore, inflation in a major economy like the United States can influence global investor behavior. If investors perceive the dollar as less stable, they might opt to park their money elsewhere, causing shifts in global capital flows. In sum, the tentacles of inflation reach far beyond a country's borders, affecting global trade, exchange rates, and investment patterns. The interconnectedness of our economies means that no country is immune from the effects of inflation. So, what have we learned about inflation's impact on the world? Inflation, often seen as an unseen threat, is a significant economic force that has far-reaching impacts on economies and people's lives. We've delved into the definition of inflation, understanding it as the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising, and subsequently, purchasing power is falling. We've seen the stark reality of inflation in Venezuela, where hyperinflation has led to a devastating economic crisis. The country's currency has lost its value, with prices skyrocketing, leading to extreme poverty and a scarcity of basic necessities. On the flip side, we've observed Japan's deflation, where persistent falling prices have led to stagnant growth and economic uncertainty. People hold off on spending in anticipation of further price drops, which in turn affects businesses and the overall economy. Inflation's global impact is undeniable. It affects everything from the cost of living to business investment to international trade and financial markets. Inflation can stimulate economic activity, but it can also lead to economic instability if not managed effectively. After all, it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about how these numbers translate into the real world, affecting people's ability to buy groceries, pay for education, save for the future, or even just make ends meet. As we've seen, understanding inflation is key to grasping the complexities of our global economy. It's not just about numbers, but about lives and livelihoods.